great one is the wall reference contralateral deadlift. So this is a unilateral movement. I'm going to do it on this side. So it's my right side. The roller is going to go on the inside of the leg, and this is to stop the knee rolling outwards. Right, my hips are forward, my left leg is back and slightly bent, and I'm in my big toe of my left foot. Right, so I don't have it down, it's up. The weight of my body is going to be through my midfoot in my right leg. So I'm going to slightly bend my knee. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to think about my left hip coming across to my right. So we've got the slight rotation, the upper body is not moving. We just got that little bit of rotation through the hip. This leg stays still, and then from that point, I'm going to drive my hip back. You can put your hand on here for reference. I'm going to drive my hip back, and then bring the hip forward. Notice the knee does not extend. We are only thinking about a hip going back, lengthening the glute, and the hip coming forward. Now, if you don't feel this bump, what might be happening is the foot. You're not in the arch, you're not in that midfoot, you're not having that arch lengthen or the load going through it, so you might need to change the foot around. Also, you might be going forward, where the hinge is the ability to drive the hip backwards. All right. And this left hand is going down towards my right toe, and what's happening here is the sacrum is moving away from the sit bone, so we're getting this beautiful lengthening of the glute. And what this means for our pelvic floor is that our pelvic floor on this right side is getting all of this beautiful movement through full range. It's lovely. Right, the next one that we can do, so there's that one where we can try and get ourselves into the hinge position, is the one against the wall, where we make sure that we are in that midfoot and we're just driving the hip back, just like that. Just driving the hip back. Nothing else moves for that hinge but the hips. Literally, hips move back and forward. The knee stays where it is, hips move back, and hips move forward. If you want to add in some rotation as well, you will get more of that sacrum pulling apart from the sit bone, and we feel the glute working that little bit more, which is lovely. Then we can come away from the wall, the progression, because now we don't have that foot reference, and we can just have our heel up against, see it, heel up against the plate. Now we are getting our weight now is in this back heel. This is where reference is, and we're just going to drive that hip back. So what we've done here is we've brought the surface of the floor up to our heel, whereas this is where we want to be for a lot of postpartum women, because they are so driven forward that they don't know where the ground is for their heels. So when we bring it up to them, oh, they now have a reference. Drive the hip back and forward. Drive the hip back and forward. Right, and then the progression of that is to come away from the passive help and just feet together and hinging. Right, because we now have a reference of where our midfoot is, where our heels are, and we drive the hip back and we drive the hip forward. What we are not looking at is coming up, straightening up the knees and bringing the hips forward. It is drive the hip back, bring the hip forward. Drive the hip back, bring the hip forward. Glutes on fire.